We're going to get started here on the deck because millions of American homeowners either have one or they want one. The first thing to consider here, of course, is the design of the deck, and the way your house is laid out will drive that design quite a bit. For example, this house has some unique angles that are complemented by the angle of the deck. Once you've determined what you want your deck to look like, the next big decision is what material to use. Once upon a time, that was easy. It was wood. And you used whatever weather-resistant wood was most available in your area. That might be redwood, cedar, or, like we've used here, pressure-treated pine. But now more and more homeowners are choosing composite materials. It's a little misleading to call these composite decks, though, because they aren't made entirely from composite materials. They all begin with a framework made from a more rigid, structurally sound material, usually pressure-treated wood. This framework will include the posts that support the deck and the joists that connect them to each other and to the house. Because composite deck boards are less rigid, these joists will be spaced more closely together to provide additional support. The composite material is installed on top of this framework so that the surface you see and the one that the sun and rain beats down on is more attractive and less likely to deteriorate in the weather. Composites are made from cellulose or wood fibers and plastic resin. That means each board is identical in size and profile. It also means that warping, splintering, and cracking are things of the past because composites tend to be more dimensionally stable. Depends on the manufacturer, but there are several different ways to install this material. Some varieties have a tongue and groove design that allows them to be installed so that none of the fasteners are visible on the surface. But the most common style of composite mimics one of the most common wood decking materials, the 5/4 by 6 plank. The fasteners can be driven through the face of these boards, but the fasteners are one of the key differences between composites and wood. Composites are almost always installed with screws instead of nails. That adds a little bit of time to the process, but also makes for a clean, secure deck. As you might guess, a wood deck starts with a similar framework, but the deck boards themselves are also wood. Wood decking, especially the pressure-treated varieties, tend to have a higher moisture content when it's new, so it's a good idea to install the boards as tightly together as possible because as they weather, they tend to shrink. That shrinking and expanding the wood does as the moisture content and air temperature rise and fall is the cause of most of wood decks problems. The best solution is to apply a sealer or a stain so that the pores of the wood absorb less moisture. The better ones will also block out the sun's ultraviolet rays, which can break down wood fibers. If you do this to an existing deck, you'll want to clean the surface first to remove any dirt or mildew. If your new wood deck is made from pressure-treated material, it's best to let it weather for at least one full season before applying any kind of stain. As you might imagine, those composites are a bit more expensive than wood, but how much more expensive will depend on the type of wood you compare them to and which brand and style of composite you select. One misconception about composites is that they are maintenance-free. Unfortunately, anything that stays out in the weather will get a little dirty, so composites need to be cleaned just like wood, even if it's only for aesthetic reasons. You should also be aware that composites will change color in time. That's because the wood fiber content that they're made of, just like any other wood, tends to gray with exposure to the elements. Most manufacturers are pretty candid about this fading, although they usually refer to it as weathering. The point is, before you buy, you should ask to see a sample of the material you're considering that has been out in the elements for at least a few years. That way you'll have a better idea of what your deck will look like after it's been in place for a while.